You know that feeling, right? Your production app is down, the messages are flying in, and there's that cold knot of panic tightening in your stomach. We've all been there. Well, today, we're going to turn that chaos into control. We're diving deep into a professional toolkit for troubleshooting power apps.
You know, the biggest mistake we make when things go wrong is we start clicking around randomly, changing a bit of code here, a bit there, and just hoping for the best. That ends today. The absolute key to fixing issues like a pro is to shift from that frantic guessing to a calm, systematic diagnostic process.
So, here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with getting the right mindset before we even touch our diagnostic tools. Then, we'll hunt down two of the biggest culprits out there, missing records and slow performance. After that, I've got some rapid-fire pro patterns for common bugs, and we'll wrap it all up by learning how to build apps that are solid from the very start. Let's get into it.
Okay, before you write a single line of code, before you open any tool, the very first step is all in your head. Adopting a professional mindset is, without a doubt, the most powerful troubleshooting technique you have.
I want you to think of yourself as a doctor for your app. A doctor doesn't just hand out random prescriptions, right? No, they diagnose first. You have to understand the what, where, and when of the problem. Step 2, you have to be able to reproduce it reliably. If you can't make the bug happen on demand, you're just shooting in the dark. And finally, and this is so critical, make one change at a time. If you change 10 things and it suddenly works, you've learned absolutely nothing. You have no idea which one was the actual fix, which means you can't stop it from happening all over again.
All right, so with that pro mindset locked in, let's open up the toolbox and see what we're working with. These tools are basically your X-ray machines and stethoscopes for debugging. They let you see what's really going on inside your app.
So, Power Apps gives you two fantastic built-in tools. First up is the App Checker. Think of this as your spell check for code. It's great for what we call static analysis, finding formula errors and accessibility issues before you even hit run. But for the real deep dive, the monitor is your absolute best friend. This thing is your live debugger. It gives you a real-time feed of every network call, every variable change, every user action, exactly as it's happening.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. As Tom Jeffries from Microsoft puts it, the monitor is one of the sharpest tools in our tool belt. Seriously, mastering this tool is what separates the amateur app makers from the pros. It's how you find the root cause of those really tricky, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't kinds of bugs.
So how do you use it? Well, in the studio, it's tucked away under Advanced Tools. For a live, published app, you can launch it right from the app details page. But here's the real pro tip. Go into your app's settings and turn on Debug Published App. This is huge, because it lets you see your actual PowerFX formulas in the trace, not just some generic network calls. Just, and this is important, remember to turn it off when you're done, as it can add a tiny bit of performance overhead.
All right, let's tackle one of the most frustrating problems in all of Power Apps: data that just seems to vanish. If you've ever banged your head against the wall over this, you've probably stumbled into the great mystery of delegation.
Has this ever happened to you? You're filtering a gallery, and you know there should be more records. You just know it, but they're just not there. You scroll, you search, nothing. I'd bet good money the culprit is almost always a non-delegable query.
So what on earth is delegation? Well, put simply, it's letting your data source do all the heavy lifting. Instead of Power Apps downloading your entire SharePoint list, all 10,000 items, and then trying to filter it on your phone, it just sends the filter question to SharePoint. SharePoint does the work and sends back only the matching records. It's the absolute key to making apps perform well with large data sets.
And here you can see the problem and the solution side by side. The search function. It often isn't delegable. On a small test list, it seems to work just fine. But then, in production, once you go over your data row limit, records just start silently disappearing. No warning, no error, they're just gone. The fix is to use a fully delegable query like filter with starts with. This tells the server to do the work so you always get every single matching result, no matter how big your list gets.
Next up, let's talk about the app that feels like it's running through molasses. A slow, laggy app is just a terrible experience for your users, and there are usually a few common suspects we can hunt down to fix it.
Now the good news is, these are all totally within our control. We have a tendency to overload the onStart property, which makes the app really slow to open. We forget to remove that giant uncompressed image file. We load entire tables when we really only need 2 columns. But the sneakiest, most villainous performance killer of them all is something called the N+1 problem.
So the N+1 problem is a classic performance bug. Just imagine, you have a gallery showing 100 items. To get that data, that's one data call. But inside that gallery, for every single one of those 100 rows, you do a lookup to another table to get, say, the manager's name. Well, that's 100 times more calls. Your poor app is making 101 network requests just to render one list. No wonder it's slow.
And the fix? The fix is so simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Instead of making all those calls inside the gallery, you do it before the screen even loads. Make one call for your main data and a second call for all the related data and store both in local collections. Now, your gallery's lookup is hitting that lightning-fast local data instead of going over the network. And just like that, you've gone from 101 network calls down to 2. That is a massive, massive performance win.
Okay, time to switch gears into some pro patterns. This next section is rapid fire to simple, effective fixes for some of the most common and, frankly, annoying bugs that are out there.
This one right here is a total game changer. Never ever rely directly on gallery selected. Why? Because galleries can refresh, your filters can change, and that selection can become unstable, causing your forms to suddenly point to the wrong item. The robust solution is to use the gallery's onSelect property to store this item in a variable. Then, you use that stable variable everywhere else. No more weird bugs. Here's another classic, the impatient user who clicks the Save button 5 times in a row and creates 5 duplicate records. The fix for this is so simple. In your button's onSelect, you just set a variable, maybe call it var saving, to true right before the patch function, and then set it back to false right after. Then you just bind the button's display mode to that variable. The button literally disables itself while it's working. No more duplicates.
You know, we've spent a lot of time fixing broken things. But the ultimate goal, what we should all be striving for as professionals, is to build apps that don't break in the first place. This final section is all about being proactive, not reactive.
Look, these aren't just tips, they're habits. And good habits lead to good apps. Use descriptive names for your variables. var current users so much better than var1. If data is only used on one screen, make it a context variable, not a global one. Be ruthless about cleaning up. If you're not using it, delete it. And please leave comments, not for your colleagues, but for the most important person who will ever have to maintain this app, you 6 months from now.
And really, that brings us to the core question you should be asking yourself every time you build. It's pretty easy to build an app that just works, for today. The real challenge and the real mark of a pro is building an app that's robust, maintainable, and truly built to last. So the next time you open up Power Apps Studio, don't just ask yourself, does it work? Ask, is it built to last?